to Inner Peace Better Health. I am your host Shreya. Today's guest is Dr. Glenn Berger, psychotherapist, author, and a man who has lived multiple creative lifetimes. From engineering albums for legends like Dylan and Sinatra to guiding clients toward personal transformation. Glenn's journey is a masterclass in reinvention, soulful liberation. We are diving into the heart of what it truly means to free the human spirit, and not just in theory but in action. So, welcome, Glenn. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you so much for having me, Shreya. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much. And, Glenn, you have danced between two worlds, music and mental health. So, how has your experience in the recording studio shaped your understanding of the human psyche?
Yes, yes. So as you were saying, when I was 17 years old, I had the great good fortune of working at one of the great recording studios of all time in New York City, a place called A&R Studios. And I was mentored by a Lifetime Achievement Grammy Award-winning producer engineer, a man named Phil Ramone. And what I learned at that studio was a standard of excellence. That you never did anything halfway. And we had to make sure that the artists that we worked with, people like you mentioned, whether it was Bob Dylan or Frank Sinatra or Mick Jagger or any of the other great Steely Dan, great people that I worked with, was that they had the highest standards. They were trying to make great art, and we, as their support, as recording engineers, producers, we had to make sure that we created the conditions under which that they could create at the highest level. And what I saw when I worked with these artists was that, of course, they were very talented, but it wasn't some amazing flight of genius that led to the great music that they created. What it was dogged perseverance. They worked harder and longer than anyone. So as a young kid, when I was 18 or 19 years old, and it would be 2 o'clock in the morning and we'd been working for 12 hours and I would just I couldn't wait. Let's go home. What more could you possibly want? They would say, let's do it again. Let's do it again. We can make it better. We can do it better. And that perseverance, that dogged determination, that holding to the highest standards in the face of any kind of obstacle is the great lesson that I learned from the artists that I work with. And so, whatever you want to accomplish in life, and in terms of becoming the best person that you want to be, I think right now that we don't have great role models for that,
Yeah.
and especially young men today don't have great role models for becoming the best kind of man that you can possibly be. And this was one of the great lessons that I learned is that uh, in order to accomplish anything requires passion and vision and courage and perseverance.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think creativity and healing, they both ask to hear us what the words cannot express. And you have said that so beautifully. And was there ever a moment in that high stakes environment that mirrored a therapeutic breakthrough?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I've wondered why these were my two great interests. And of course, they both involve hearing, deep, deep listening. Uh, so there was, I had the great good fortune of working with Paul Simon, and he
Okay.
was a very difficult guy to work with. And I was out of the business. I had little kids. I was a therapist already. And one of my clients came in to the studio and he said that he was having a really hard time contacting his deepest emotions. And he thought that maybe but he noticed that when he listened to the music that he loved, it brought those feelings up to the surface. So he said, but I've never been able to do that in front of another person. I've never been able to show my emotions in front of somebody else. So I said, well, let's listen to one of those songs that tends to move you. So the
Yes.
song that he picked was Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which was Paul Simon and Garfunkel's biggest hit. And we put that song on, actually the version that an artist named Aretha Franklin sang, which is an amazing recording. And we listened to this together, and he was the one who was supposed to have the deep feelings, but something came up in me, and I just started weeping. I just started crying very, very powerfully. And it brought up all the memories, unprocessed, uh, resolved memories that I had from my days working in the music business. So though
Mm,
it was supposed to be a therapeutic breakthrough for him, which it was actually a breakthrough for me,
uh,
and it actually led me to end up writing my memoir of my days in the music business called "Never Say No to a Rock Star." And that was a multi-year journey and writing that memoir was my way of working through all the unresolved feelings that I had about that time in my life. So, uh, so the great thing about being a therapist is that I get to do therapy 40 hours a week. I get the benefit of the therapy, and people actually pay me. So,
mm.
they're getting the benefit, and I get the benefit as well.
Yes, yes. That's, that's so wonderful. And you emphasize self cultivation in your Heartfinder course.
Yes.
So, what does that really mean in a world that is rushing to optimize and not reflect?
Yeah, yeah. And I think what you just mentioned is one of the reasons that it's so hard for people to actually fulfill their greatest potential, because we like fast, easy, and simple, but that's not the way we become our best self. People don't want to hear that message because we're all moving so fast. I was deeply influenced in my own journey when I discovered the words of a great Chinese sage named Mencius, who lived about 2,500 years ago. And among the many wise things he said, pity the man who has lost his path and does not follow it, and has lost his heart and does not go out and recover it. When people's dogs and chicks are lost, they go out and look for them. But when their hearts or original nature are lost, they do not go out and look for them. The principle of self cultivation consists in nothing but trying to find the lost heart. So when I heard this, I knew that I had the clue that I was looking for in terms of why people are stuck in their lives, how we become lost from ourselves. It happened to me. I had to do hard work to find myself again. And so I came to understand that Mencius was giving us the answer in a way which is actually leading to several questions, which is, what is the heart? What does it look like to have a lost heart? How do you lose the heart? And most importantly, how do you find the heart again?
Mm,
So when you find your so as living beings, we are meant to be in a continuous process of growth and development. We don't end up the way we start out. Within the acorn lies the mighty oak tree, right? And if the acorn gets the proper emotional sunlight, soil, and water, or are the proper, for us, it's the emotional sunlight, soil, and water. If the acorn, if it gets the proper things from nature, it will become the tree that it's meant to become. We also have a thing that we are meant to be to fulfill our greatest potential. And if something interferes with that process of our greatest development, that's what it means to have a lost heart. And we see so many people who are stuck in their lives, that something has interfered with that natural process of development. And Mencius tells us that the way to find our heart, to get that process going again, is through self cultivation. And what that means is that, in the same way that we discovered in agriculture, that if you understand the laws of nature and you follow them, you can grow all the food that you need, right? We become cultivated. And what they figured out was, well, if that's the way you get something to grow, then what if we could do that for ourselves? The difference between us and a plant is that we don't need a farmer to do it for us. we can
Yes.
figure out the laws of nature, figure out how
Mhm.
to follow those laws of nature through this process of self-cultivation, then you can free your natural process of growth and development and become what you're meant to be, to become your best self, to fulfill your greatest potential, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And I think in a world that is rushing, it's must be a brave act or a much needed act to be slow down and simply to be yourself. That is so, so true. And what are some of the emotional cages you see people unknowingly build around themselves?
Yes. So I would say that the number one emotional cage that we build around ourselves is captured in the word shame,
Mhm.
where shame is the feeling that goes along with the belief that somehow I don't measure up as a human being. And so instead of nourishing ourselves, just the way that nature provides the rain and the soil and the sunlight and nourishes the plant, right? The nature doesn't yell at the plant for not growing fast enough. It doesn't tell it it's a stupid, worthless plant, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Instead of doing that for ourselves, instead of nourishing ourselves, we beat ourselves up. We put ourselves down. We criticize ourselves, thinking that that's actually going to get us to do something or get us to become better.
Mm.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that shame is not only a feeling, but it's actually an internal process. It's something we do to ourselves that gets in the way and interferes with our growth. So I would say that that's really the number one emotional cage that we build around ourselves that prevents us from realizing our potential.
And I think, do you think that in today's world, like the social media and all, so people are constantly watching and getting some contents where some other person is maybe doing anything, and they're constantly comparing themselves with other person. So does that affect on their mental health?
Absolutely, the comparison game. You can't ever win the comparison game. And so many people struggle with the imposter syndrome. People like to call that, where um, it looks like everybody else is doing it, but they're not, or everybody else is great and they're not. And then they try to put on a persona, right? You present yourself on social media in a certain way, but you feel like a fraud, that it isn't true and it isn't
Mm.
real, and everybody else is doing the same thing, right?
Yes.
We're looking at
Yes.
them, they look better, but really deep inside, they're also consumed with shame.
Mm.
And it's such a there's so much evidence, especially again when we talk about young people,
Mm.
that they are emotionally so deeply wounded by
Mm.
social media, and it's really a serious issue, a serious problem that we don't know how to deal with that one.
Yes, yes. And how do we begin to delicate work of dismantling those walls with compassion instead of force?
Yes, yes. So what I noticed is that people who are stuck have six basic attributes. They have shame. Um, so for that first one, we need to develop that compassion and empathy for ourselves, and so we can have them for other people. So in order to be a great man, you've got to have compassion and empathy. And part of that means, as Confucius said, who was the teacher of Mencius, that you cannot pull the shoots. You can't make something grow faster than it will naturally grow. If you try to pull that plant to make it grow faster, you're just going to pull it out of the ground. So
Yes.
we need to be patient with ourselves. We need to be
Mm.
encouraging of ourselves and recognize how difficult it is to live in the world that we live in, and to slowly be able to grow sort of the inner muscles to be able to deal with the difficulties of life. So the second attribute that I see is that people avoid and procrastinate out of fear.
Yes.
So we need to slowly develop the courage to do the scary things. And we want to have enough challenge that we're activated, right? But not so much challenge that we're frozen, right?
Yeah.
So if we never challenge ourselves, then we're not motivated, we're bored, we're depressed. If we
Mm,
challenge ourselves too much, we're frozen in terror. So you got to
mm,
find just what your growth edge is and just do a little bit. So if you're doing yoga, right? It's the same thing. You don't have to be, and this is where you get into the comparison game where people feel like, "Oh, if I'm not an advanced yoga, I'm not really doing it or I'm not good." But
yeah.
that's so not the whole
Mm,
mentality or the whole philosophy of yoga, right? That you want to be just at that place where you're challenging yourself just enough where you're at your growth edge. So to do the scary thing. The third attribute is I call strength, that people have bad habits. And think of the temptations like you were talking about: internet porn, drugs, alcohol, online gambling, doom scrolling, dumb scrolling. There are so many
mm,
temptations continuously, junk food, uh, that it takes work to develop the ability to resist those temptations and to develop good
yeah.
habits. Again, challenging yourself a little bit. And when you can say no to one of those bad habits, it develops your strength. It heals that shame. It makes it easier. Instead of procrastinating and avoiding by getting high, you start getting things done and you feel better about yourself.
Mm,
The fourth attribute is what I see in a lot of people who are stuck is that they're very negative. They don't believe anything's ever going to work out for them. They think the world is against them, right? We need to cultivate through visualization techniques, among other things, positivity, to believe in yourself. In order to be a great person, you've got to be positive and believe in yourself and believe that if you do the right thing, the world is going to cooperate with you. It's not going to be easy, but it happens if you persevere
mm,
over time. The fifth attribute that I see in people who are stuck is that they are afraid to learn. They think they're stupid. School taught them the wrong things, that they're not capable, so they avoid learning. But how are you going to grow? How are you going to be capable if you are not in a continuous process of learning? So that even if you do a little bit every day, 5 minutes a
mm,
day, where you learn something, you're going to be in a continuous process of growth and development. And the last attribute is love. And we need to learn how to love ourselves more than any. All the other ones are included in that, right? Which
mm,
is to take care of this temple of our body, to eat well, to sleep well, to not put poisons into your body, so that you have the
mm,
strength, you have the capacity to learn and to uh, do the hard thing and to resist those temptations, which again is going to make you feel great about yourself. So just like when you go to the gym, you don't necessarily work out all of your muscles in one session. One day you work on your arms, another day you work on your legs. In the
mm.
same way, if you cultivate these six attributes of the heart, over time, you are going to gradually, slowly grow and free your natural ability to become your best self.
Yes, yes, and you have explained all these attributes so beautifully. I think this is a very complex topic, but you have said that and you have explained that so beautifully that I think all kind of listeners of ours will be really helped by it.
I
And
hope.
in your memoir, yes, so thank you for that. And also in your memoir, Never Say No to a Rock Star,
Yeah.
you explore the interplay of fame and vulnerability. So, how does chasing external success sometimes disconnect us from our inner freedom?
Yeah, yeah. So I was working with a man today who is an actor, and he hit a certain level of success when he was young. He was told when he was growing up that he was the best,
Yeah.
and he was achieving a level of success, and when he made it, he started having panic attacks, severe panic attacks, and this derailed his career for many years. Now he's back on stage, he's doing okay, but it took him off the path for many years, and he notices that even to this day, when he starts feeling like he's the best, he immediately starts having very, very powerful anxiety. because in his world, when he was told by his parents that you're the best, right? As soon as he became the best, now he's at great risk because now there's only one way to go, which is you're going to fall off that mountain. And if you're not the best in his mind, then you're worthless.
Mm.
You only have worth if you're the best. So this is why we've come up with this concept of growth mindset, right? Which is you don't say to your child, you're the best. You say, great effort,
Yeah.
right? Good for you for trying. Because
Mm.
as soon as you set that up in the child's mind that you have to be the best or you don't get mother's love or you don't have any value, now that's a terribly anxious trap. And we also know that if the child feels that they need to fulfill their parents' emotional needs as a way of getting their love, right?
Yeah.
Uh, then again, they don't know who they are. So I think a lot of people who succeed in the arts are trapped by these kinds of ways of seeing things and the way that they feel about themselves. So it can be a very, very painful life where no matter how famous you get, no matter how much you accomplish, it's never enough. And it always has to be more. And what we're seeing that even out of the arts, when we get into politics and technology, that the people who become very, very successful don't necessarily have the best moral basis because they're driven by something that's really a deep, deep hole in their psyche. And once that happens, and then you're just craving more money, more success, more fame. That can that can be very, very destructive, certainly to others, but also many, many of the artists that I worked with were in a lot of emotional pain.
Yes, yes. And success sometimes looks very shiny, but it costs a lot of truth of ourselves. And you have you have said that so nicely. And what is one soulful message you hope listeners carry forward about what it truly means to live free?
Yeah. So one thing is to become aware of this inner dialogue that we have, right? Very often there's a kind of, I call it the tyrant and the rebel, right? So the tyrant is the voice inside of us that says, you should, but I know you're not going to. And so you're bad and worthless, right? You should get to the gym. I know you're not going to go, and you're a lousy person because of it. And then the rebel on the other side says, I know you're right. I should really go, but I have a cramp and I'll get back to you a week from next Tuesday. And in fact, I'm going to rebel against you because I don't like the way you're talking to me, right? And this is an inner battle that can never end. So if we can begin to see that both of those voices in our head are an illusion and that there's some
Yes.
third place, the place that I call the heart. Mencius said that the heart, as the eye knows the beautiful and the mouth knows the delicious, the heart knows the good. And if we can quiet those voices in our head and learn how to listen to the voice of our heart will take us in the direction of the good in terms of what is best for us and in what way we're going to realize our greatest potential and figure out a way to give service to the world and make a contribution to making the world a better place, which is, I think, the ultimate goal. It takes a lot of work to quiet those voices and to access the heart and to listen to that voice and to be willing to follow that voice. So that's the journey that I've been on for decades, what I work with my clients on, and that I encourage everybody to recognize to what extent their heart is lost and to get on that journey of learning how to listen to your heart and to follow where your heart leads.
This is so beautiful, and I think this is a very wonderful and insightful conversation I had today with you. And if my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
The best way to connect with me is to go to a platform. The address is go dot heartfinders. That's HeartFinders. That's one word, heartfinders.co. So go.heartfinders.co. You can set up a free consultation with me. You can watch some videos that I have there. And I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, and you can find me on those platforms as well.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that my listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and listen more from you because you're a wonderful person and what you said and the way you said it's so beautiful. And with that, we have come to the end of this show. And to my listeners, from rock stars to the real souls, Dr. Glenn Berger shows us that liberation begins within. It's not about escaping life, it's about engaging it fully, authentically, and courageously. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to ask, where am I still playing small? And then just maybe say yes to your own song. And until next time, on the Inner Peace Better Health, keep tuning into the rhythm of your heart.